feel there's been a huge acceleration in demand for social change by COVID. If you look at where I hail from, Southern Africa, the sudden realization that there are vast numbers of people living 10 to a room. India, the same sort of basis in terms of the living conditions of a vast percentage of humanity. I think it's going to drive a louder and louder call for the ability to deal with this stuff when it's almost impossible if you're living in poverty. So that's going to be, I think that's becoming front and center. Other areas of social change, I think people now realize they can and want to work from home. This is going to have a big impact on the way companies operate. Positive, I would suspect, as opposed to negative. And it's going to really radically change where we focus and how we interact as human beings going forward. A lot of different things in there, but I put that in the back of
the different things happening. Obviously, we have the health pandemic. Depending on where you live, but many countries, you either have this fight between globalism and nationalism that's spilling out into streets and has also disrupted global supply chains. I mean, look at where you're sitting today, and you think about all the contracts that were supposed to be being renegotiated between countries right now. I think there is a big inequality across the world, and it's still about race and gender, but it's also about haves and have-nots. And I think the haves now are people not just with money and cash in the bank, but who's got access to technology, data, surveillance equipment. Most of the, call it warfare between countries today, is fought in the cyber domain, not with weapons. So you take a look at all of those impacts, and those are obstacles that, as much as there are opportunities, for example, in digital transformation, in rethinking corporate structures and rethinking local communities, I think there's going to be a challenge the next 3 to 5 years in terms of getting back some type of, call it planetary agreement between countries, between entities, about how everybody can exist, how goods and money will flow between countries. I think a lot of that's unsettled right now.
So the organisation I used to work for the last year and a half or so was very much focused on building culture within organisations, but purpose-led culture. We've all read the book, Start With Why, Simon Sinek, which is absolutely superb. But without that common understanding and driven and owned by the leadership team to really lead by example, role model, be really clear on why they exist, where they're going, why they're going there, because they've got to win the hearts and minds of these people. And you're right, but I think the millennials are going to make up something like 55% of the workforce in the next couple of years. And this new generation, someone said Generation Alpha or something, there's a new generation that's coming through. And there's a huge shift in consciousness, I think, around the globe, which is happening anyway, more to this more humanitarian way of thinking and living, and less capitalist. And there's this kind of friction, I think, now between the existing capitalist models of many organizations out there versus this shift in humanity within business, and this being this purpose-led. And sometimes they clash, sometimes they meet really well. And my children, I've got 4 teenage kids, and they're thinking and behaving very differently and looking at the world through a very strange lens right now. And there's going to be a ramification for this, I think, over the next few years as we come through all of this. We're going to have this COVID generation that who knows what they'll be doing or thinking, but I think things are going to change radically, and they kind of have to. So that purpose, I love the idea of that purpose-driven work ethic, because it's absolutely necessary. And I think we'll end up seeing many organisations failing at that point of inflection where purpose meets commerciality, and if it's not quite right, it's just, without your people, you're nothing, are you?
In the past, we were very much focused on on-premise software services, software products and services. Cloud was beginning to happen for the last 2-3 years, but suddenly it has picked up so much pace that all our organizations, all product organizations are now focusing more and more on cloud-related offerings.
Organizations like middle-sized companies in the European region, they have the lowest bandwidth, but they are more profitable than all the big banks. They are generating money like hell, and they're going to support full-time, even in COVID times, their employees. Is it you can work from home, you have a shuttle service, every clean car, so everything is possible, but not in big companies. So the question for me is, where do we end up? Do we have a 2 or 3 layer where the big banks gonna fail because all the digital transformation I've seen in my past career failed, and the German Mittelstand, the middle-sized companies, are getting bigger and faster and more profitable, and you only find their happy people. And then you have the last level of people who don't have real access, who can't use it, who are not allowed to work from home. Of course, the bakery is not, a bakery person is not possible working from home. But so I'm wondering where we really end up, because I can't believe that everyone wants to work from home and this for the rest of his life. I don't want. I'm missing meeting people. If I do interviews, I hate doing this on video. It's really, I need to have these people in front of me. I've seen in the last couple of months so many pitches to clients where we really fail because we are not able to transport the message. And if you're going to call someone, and we are on the professional side, if we look on salespeople in a normal shop who are now providing services through a glass wall, or that's what happened here, they are more engaged than we are. That's my feeling.
One of the things I've started to assess is the sales cycle of a lot of organizations. And I think what I'm seeing, and I'd love to be pulled up on this, because I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is based on my sort of my new data, is the sales process is still working, and actually in some instances working better than it was previously. There are more sales interactions happening now. So rather the sales process may be the same, but there's a lot more interactions going on over that process to get the customer closure. Is that something that everyone else is seeing, and is that a similar sort of things that leads up to that point that you were touching on, Mark?
In fact, a lot of the major analysts, Gartner and Everest and Forrester and ISG, they're all looking at, and we've been working with them, 6 to 9 month RFP cycles for, $50, $100 million plus deals are now taking place in 45 to 90 days, right? With an expectation that a contactless transition, no people on site, full cloudification and digitalization of the way a construct of a deal would work, that this is going to become the new norm. I mean, why take 6 months when you can, cut out all the travel time, cut out, all the dead space in between, and literally just get things done. And I see that with small deals, large deals, multiple industries. Decisions can be made a lot faster. So it's going to be interesting to see what the lasting impact of that is.
There's one thing I am experiencing. Obviously the sales cycles, as you said, are becoming shorter, and maybe this is partly because things are being, automated at some level, and people are looking at digital transformation. But there's one thing from a recruitment perspective that I am noticing, that things are taking longer, in the respect that I'm noticing that senior managers are really struggling to make decisions online. And I've just had a process very recently where we had 2 more interactions, if you like, put into the process, and it was for a very senior hire, and they ended up meeting, distance meeting, and it was the last interview, and they'd had 7, and it was all go, absolutely just final meeting, and they met, and it was like absolutely not. And really interesting. So, I think from a recruitment perspective, and I'd be really interested to know how senior managers are dealing with this actually, and how are you finding it, sort of recruiting senior people into your teams in this environment, because it's part, your people are everything.
I'm probably coming from the other side of the spectrum to everyone here, and that any interview that requires more than 2 conversations, the answer should be no, if I'm honest. Recruited a lot of people over my career, and I often find that the long interview processes are because someone either doesn't have the courage to make a decision, or doesn't have the power to make a decision. And for me personally, if I'm hiring someone, I can pretty much in the first conversation decide whether they're going to fit in the team. I've done the profiling that you talk about. You can get a lot out of what people say and do, and I think we forget that most of our, maybe not for everyone, but certainly in my hiring, a lot of it comes through the network, and you can get references for people in the background and so on. So there's a huge amount of information you can gather on people, which again, you come back to it takes more interviews, and the person you shouldn't hire them. And I think it's when I get hired interviewed more than twice, I go, well, I don't think this is a good fit. If this many people need to make a decision, and I often wonder what interviews are about, some of them.